Yeah, I wonder now, sitting in the seat that you're in as CEO of Bedrock. Detroit is known for being the motor city, but industries change, sectors change. Sitting where you're at, and I'm hearing you talk about opportunity and the quote more for than profit. It speaks to me about community and having given opportunities to all. And so I wonder, when you got off the couch, you took this role. I mean, you didn't have to, but you did. Was it primarily to provide opportunity? And what's the end goal? Is it to say, yes, we've now created a sector here where we provide opportunity in the world of real estate? Do I move on to another city to see if we can replicate it? Or I want to make sure that this city here and everybody in the 313 thrives and know that this is a city that is on the rise?
Well, I think first I always go back to the fact that cities evolve. This is a moment in time where I believe I have an opportunity and candidly the ability to create a template perhaps that others may wish to replicate. I mean, certainly, I think Dan Gilbert's for more than profit model is one that one would hope that others would replicate.
What does that mean for more than profit? What does that mean?
For more than profit, it means you don't have to just look at the bottom line. You just don't necessarily have to look at spreadsheets and convinced by what the spreadsheet says. You have to also think about the long-term impact of what is being done. And if you do it right, you will get your profit. You will get your profit, but you can't just look to the bottom line. And I think that's beginning to play out here in Detroit, and I'm pretty sure it will play out in Cleveland. And the fact of the matter is, you also need a very strong public partner. Don't get me wrong, because you do need a public partner to help leverage the private capital that you're putting in. But again, it's a longer term view because you're thinking about the fundamental social infrastructure in addition to the economic infrastructure. And that's you can't just look for 5 to 7 year returns. Well, frankly, if you can, it's just a different business. Let me put it that way. And people do that all the time. But he's done pretty well with his for more than profit outlook.
For the young professionals that want to get into urban development, what advice would you give them, and what roadblocks would you have them avoid in their career, if you can guide them?
Well, urban development is very broad, right? I happen to have had the pathway where I started as an architect and then as a planner, and then fundamentally in the public sector for many years in a variety of different roles, understanding how cities work and how cities are funded. And then I got into the private sector, working in creating and working within public-private partnerships to take bigger long-term bets on urban development. I would suggest, I always say this to youngsters who are interested in maybe following portions of my path, first really understand how cities work. How do cities get their capital? How is it possible to leverage taxes? Municipal finance is one of the strongest tools that we have been able to use to leverage our private capital. And it's not just us. I mean, other developers use it too. But it is, I think it's an extremely powerful tool when joined in a public-private partnership. So that's the first thing I would say. And secondly, look, if folks want to frankly just be real estate investors and do, the odd real estate development here and there is a pathway for that. That's just not what I do. That's not what I do. It doesn't interest me to do that. But that's all. But there are a lot of developers who work throughout the country, and they work on single assets throughout different cities, and they do very, very well. And I'm hoping maybe to attract some of those to work with us on some of our assets here. But we tend to focus on, as we say, very specific long-term plans within cities. And we're focused on 2 cities, and the 2 cities are primarily because that's where Dan Gilbert has invested significant capital already. He invested significant capital through the Cleveland Cavaliers in Cleveland, and so we have a fairly his other rocket companies have a base in Cleveland, and so we believe that city should grow with us, him, the rocket companies. And of course, Detroit downtown is his hometown, and Detroit is the location for rocket companies. And so again, we believe that we should participate in bringing Detroit up with the citizenry of Detroit. So, but back to sort of the second part of what I think is important for folks who are interested in urban development to understand, and that's the importance of active listening in the community. The community has several voices, which is a great thing. The diversity of opinion is critically important, but you have to have an ear to hear it, and you have to have community partners to help filter it, and then you have to have the city partner to help execute, so that you're constantly thinking through how you can help build up the community in this process. We go out of our way to find stellar examples of local entrepreneurs in community neighborhoods and see if we can use our platform and our framework to highlight what they do and bring them into our facilities, bring them into prominent spaces in downtown. In Cleveland, we have a number of community businesses in the Tower City, and certainly in downtown Detroit along Woodward. We create opportunities in our real estate portfolio to showcase local entrepreneurs and local businesses. As we do so, we find some of them actually thrive and raise their profile far beyond what they had perhaps in the neighborhoods. And I think that's important too, as a part of just community and civic pride, to show that Detroit has these wonderful, wonderful businesses, and all they're looking for is an opportunity. So the ability to create that opportunity for them, I think, is critical to the urban development framework.
Well, Kofi, thank you for your time. Before you leave, my personal last question is about Ghana.
Yes.
So we've been spending a lot of time in Ghana. We was there in December, then we were back there a few weeks ago. So, just learning the in and outs of the culture. I've learned enough to understand that. I think you probably were born on Friday, right?
I was.
Yeah.
That took you. That's not fair. You went. How many times did you go there to find that out?
Only took once.
Only took once. There you go.
But
that's exactly right.
One of the things that we saw obviously is the development, right? So many different apartment buildings being developed, and there's such a strong interest from the diaspora, especially America. People coming there, people coming during December, but people also relocating. We met a bunch of business owners that moved from America, that started restaurants, that started different types of businesses, and now they're residents of Ghana. What's your thought process on Ghana currently in 2024? Like, what are you optimistic about? What you have some concerns about? You as somebody that's you've seen it from where it was to where it's at now. I'm just curious to know what your thought process is.
Yeah. We always start with the positive, right? I think there's tremendous interest and positive interest in Africa as a whole, but specifically in Ghana, and that interest is driving some curiosity, enough curiosity for folks to get on a plane and visit it. And often when they visit, they are enthralled by the people and the culture to the point where there is consideration for investment. And look, Ghana needs a lot of foreign directed investment. And so folks of their own accord bringing their capital and their ideas to invest in the country is tremendous. Tremendous, because that obviously boosts the economy and most importantly creates jobs. I'm optimistic that the educational structure continues to really bring forward some really smart individuals, entrepreneurial individuals that have been able to sustain the country for a while. And however, unfortunately, they are so good at what they do, perhaps they are drawn away by the fact that they are so good at what they do that there is significant brain drain going on. A significant amount of the health professionals in Ghana are trained in Ghana and then they leave. And that's concerning, but somewhat understandable. I'm pessimistic because the fundamental infrastructure of the company requires a great deal of work. And that, I mean, the social infrastructure, while strengthened through the traditional heritage and culture, is weak when it comes through the sort of the social service networks. And people are exposed as the global economy suffered over the last several years. These fragile economies in the third world really took a significant hit. And that hit has a horrible residual effect on the folks at the bottom of the scale who are having to work 3 times as hard just to get, frankly, the same amount of income. And that is unhealthy. And therefore I worry that the gap between the haves and the have-nots only increases. And my fear is that the governmental institutions haven't built enough bridges, and in fact are so focused on sort of top line growth in terms of attracting more investment, foreign directed investment, tourism, etc., without necessarily finding ways to shore up the fundamental infrastructure of the economy, either by building those infrastructural pieces that would help transport or could create much more of an industrial base in the country. We're still exporting. You're taking it out of the ground and exporting it, be it either cocoa or gold, right? Exporting it for the most part and subjecting it to the world market prices. After 50, 60 years, we're still essentially doing the same things we did many, many years ago or decades ago. And that's not sustainable. So I worry that the gaps between the haves and the have-nots only increases. And we're still somewhat in a subsidized era. And I'm terrified of the World Bank and IMF policies and what they ultimately might do to the country.